Leonard Shelby is disoriented and cannot understand where he is. He suffers from a rare form of amnesia and forgets what happened 15 minutes ago. Leonard's purpose in life is to find the person who took his wife's life. He is assisted in his investigation by Teddy. They arrive at an abandoned warehouse where there may be something that will shed light on the case. In Leonard's jacket pocket, he finds several Polaroid photos. One of it said that Teddy was lying. Deciding that Teddy was the one he was looking for, Leonard attacked him and forced to apologize. Teddy only told Leonard that they both are not who he thinks they are. Leonard fired a shot. The film consists of 2 chronological lines. Colored segments follow each other in reverse order, while black and white inserts follow a regular timeline. Leonard doesn't remember how he ended up in the motel. To avoid forgetting his goal, he uses notes, tattoos and Polaroid photos. Taking the photograph containing the reminder, Leonard left the motel. He was determined to seek revenge. Before doing so, Leonard approached Bert, the motel receptionist, and explained that he suffers from a rare form of amnesia, so he can act strangely. Turns out they've had this conversation before, only Leonard doesn't remember. When Leonard asked how long he has been at the motel, Bert answered a few days. Leonard asked not to let anyone but Teddy in. The problem is that every time Leonard forgets whether Teddy is a friend or foe. Leonard can only trust his own handwriting. He is aware that others might exploit his condition for their selfish purposes. Leonard has a tattoo on his hand. Remember Sammy Jenkins? The other tattoo said fax. At any moment, Leonard can get lost in the city, so the motel address must always be visible. Leonard conducts his own investigation and gathers information bit by bit. Teddy is definitely lying to him. In fact, according to the photocopied documents, his real name is John Edward Gamble. Leonard immediately called him and asked if it was John. Teddy or John hastily said he would come to the motel. Leonard has many tattoos with reminders on his body. This helps him remember that he must find the person responsible for his wife's demise. According to the tattoos, Leonard is looking for a white man with the initials JG. So far, all facts point to the person calling himself Teddy. Leonard is determined to get even. But perhaps all is not as it seems at first glance. Leonard prepared for the meeting and took a gun. Leonard remembers everything before the attack on him and his wife and the head injury, but now he forgets everything that happened 15 minutes ago. Today Leonard is supposed to meet Natalie, who according to notes, also lost a loved one and is willing to help out of sympathy. Entering the cafe, he of course did not recognize Natalie. She gave him a sign herself. Sitting at Natalie's table, Leonard began to explain about his illness, but she had already heard it. Natalie is here because Leonard asked her to find out about the owner of a certain car. With the help of her supposed police friend, Natalie discovered that the car belongs to John Edward Gamble. Natalie told Leonard that even if he gets revenge, he won't remember it. But that didn't matter to Leonard. Closing his eyes, he thinks about the wife. Leonard misses her very much, and he hates the person who took his most precious one. Natalie gave Leonard the address of an abandoned warehouse outside the city, where her boyfriend Jimmy used to conduct illegal activities. It's the perfect place for vengeance. Natalie also returned Leonard's motel key, which he had left with her. They have something in common. They have both experienced loss. Wishing Leonard luck, Natalie left. In the restroom washing his hands, Leonard noticed a tattoo reminding him not to forget Sammy. Leonard met this guy when working as a detective in an insurance company and investigating fraud cases. Leonard was an expert in his field and knew how to identify liars. But Sammy was a really difficult case for him. Teddy suggested Leonard grab a bite to eat together. Leonard as usual reminded Teddy of his illness, but Teddy had heard it all hundreds of times before. In the cafe, Teddy casually asked if Leonard had found the elusive JG he had been searching for all this time. Teddy also warned Leonard not to rely on notes. However, Leonard disagrees. Memory is deceptive, so facts are all he can rely on. Leonard now lives solely for revenge. Teddy promised to help him do that. Leonard has photos of the motel, but he can't remember the exact room because the key is missing. The receptionist opened the door for him with a spare key. Suddenly, Bert claimed he had mixed up the room numbers. Leonard doubted this because he found one of his notes. Bert explained to Leonard that he lived here a week ago but then moved to the second floor for some reason. Leonard took his word for it. He's already running late because according to the note, he should meet Natalie at noon. After the meeting and conversation with Natalie, Leonard once again thought about Sammy, who after the accident suffered from the same form of amnesia as Leonard. Doctors conducted numerous tests, resulting in hefty bills, so his wife turned to the insurance company. For Leonard, this was his first serious investigation. Sammy was thinking clearly but couldn't remember anything. It was a very rare form of amnesia. Or maybe Sammy was just pretending well? Initially Leonard thought Sammy was a simian. However, that had yet to be confirmed. One morning Leonard woke up not in his motel but in Natalie's house. However, he couldn't remember who she was. Natalie reminded him that today she was supposed to find out about the owner of a certain car whose license plate number Leonard had given her. Leonard has photos with reminders in his pocket. After reviewing it, he realized Natalie also lost a loved one. He thanked her for the help. Natalie said they were helping each other. She was sorry that he wouldn't even remember her at their next meeting. Before Leonard could leave her house, Teddy approached him and suggested grabbing a bite together. In the past, Leonard tested Sammy with the help of experts. The results showed that he indeed suffered from amnesia. Leonard wanted to see if Sammy could memorize some things not through memory but through reflexes. Leonard visited Natalie, whose name and address he found in a note. Showing her a photo, he demanded an explanation about someone named Dodd. Natalie said she didn't have to worry about him anymore. It turned out she had exploited Leonard's condition for her selfish purposes. When Leonard was hunting Dodd, he believed Dodd was the one who took away his wife. Natalie crumpled up the photo of Dodd. Despite everything, she intends to help Leonard in his investigation. It would be payment for what he did for her. Leonard couldn't contain his emotions. He doesn't even know who he is. All Leonard has are scraps of paper with writings. Now his entire life fits on it. Natalie said she lost her lover. His name was Jimmy Grants. He went to meet someone named Teddy and never returned. The police couldn't do anything. The investigation reached a dead end. Leonard stayed overnight at Natalie's house. He doesn't even remember how long ago he lost his wife. He only remembers that he must seek revenge. Leonard would like to forget this loss and be free, but he can't because lives outside of time. That night, Leonard wrote on one of the photos that Natalie also lost someone close and would help out of sympathy. Even with memory loss, Sammy was unable to rely on unconditional reflexes, leading doctors to conclude that it was a mental illness, not a physical. So there was no payout because mental illnesses weren't covered by insurance. Sammy's wife was overwhelmed with bills from the clinic. Sammy became unteachable and helpless. Leonard's situation was different. He woke up disoriented again. It seems to be some unknown motel. In the bedside table, Leonard found a gun and a Bible. In the closet, Dodd was locked up and immobilized. Of course Leonard doesn't remember who Dodd is. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. It was Teddy, who claimed that Leonard had recently called him from this motel asking for help. Leonard showed him Dodd, but it clearly wasn't the JG he was looking for. One of the photos said that Leonard had to get rid of Dodd. Leonard is trying to figure out what to do now. If they leave Dodd here, they'll get arrested. Apparently this is Dodd's room, so the gun also belongs to him. In the end they forced Dodd to clean himself up, and under threat let him out of the motel, after which they drove him far away and left him outside the city. Leonard had no intention of harming anyone if this person wasn't JG. Of course Leonard immediately went to Natalie to get explanations about Dodd. Sammy's wife was bankrupted by caring for him. They received nothing from the insurance company. The woman believed that since Sammy's illness had a mental, not physical, origin, it might pass as suddenly as it started. While taking a shower, Leonard heard someone enter the room and use the toilet. It turned out to be Dodd. A fight immediately broke out between the guys. After knocking Dodd out, Leonard locked the door to prevent the maid from entering. He then immobilized Dodd, moved him to the closet and took a photo. This would ensure Leonard wouldn't forget that Dodd was somehow connected to Natalie. Teddy is the only person Leonard could turn to in such a situation. So he called him and asked to come right away. Sammy's wife didn't realize that there was no way to make a person remember. The more pressure, the worse it gets. Leonard doesn't remember why he's chasing Dodd. Leonard didn't even immediately realize that it's actually Dodd chasing him, not the other way around. Moreover, Dodd has a gun. Leonard got into his car and managed to drive away. In his pocket was a note with the address of the motel where Dodd lives. That's where Leonard went, and breaking down the door, entered. It turned out that Leonard had mixed up the room. Dodd's door wasn't locked, so Leonard could enter freely. He looked around and prepared to meet Dodd. Next, we see Dodd pursuing Leonard in his car and cornering him. Leonard doesn't remember how they are connected. Dodd has a gun. A chase ensues. Having arrived far outside the city, Leonard burned things that reminded him of his wife, including her favorite book. She had read it dozens of times. Leonard doesn't know if he has done this before. Perhaps he has already burned many of her things. But it didn't help him forget. Leonard is trying to understand why the police closed the case and didn't look for the mysterious JG. Substances found in Leonard's stolen car were mentioned in the police report, but this fact, like others, was ignored by the police. Waking up early one morning, Leonard couldn't immediately remember that his wife was gone. Entering the bathroom, he saw an unfamiliar woman and asked her to leave. The substances found in the car didn't make any sense. The police report stated that the guy broke into Leonard and his wife's house because he needed money for a dealer. There is no logic in this. So Leonard has reason to believe that JG left it in the car or planted. Maybe he's a dealer. Finally Leonard has a lead. He checked into a motel and took a photo so he wouldn't forget. After that, Leonard called a woman providing special services. When the woman arrived, Leonard explained that she just had to go to sleep and then go to the bathroom and slam the door. He also gave the woman his wife's belongings. She had to pretend it was hers. The woman thought this request was strange, but she did it. This way Leonard hoped to recreate the events of that fateful night and trigger memories. One day Sammy's wife came to Leonard's office and talked about her life with her husband for some reason. She admitted to not reminding him to eat, hoping it would help Sammy's memory recover. She wasn't here to claim insurance payouts. Her purpose was to hear Leonard's candid opinion on whether Sammy's illness was truly mental. Leonard indeed believed that Sammy had no physical pathologies. The hopelessness made the woman cry. Leonard was sure he had helped her, but now he doubts it. Getting into his car, Leonard saw Teddy here and didn't recognize him. Teddy reminded him that they were friends. He also reminded Leonard of Natalie. Leonard doesn't remember anything about her, even though he was just with her. Teddy advised Leonard not to trust Natalie. Her boyfriend is a dealer, and sooner or later his associates will come for Natalie, demanding she pay off her boyfriend's debts. These are very dangerous people operating all over the city, staying in different motels. Teddy has the address of one of these motels. Following Teddy's advice, Leonard wrote on the back of Natalie's photo that she couldn't be trusted. However, when Teddy left, Leonard saw the same note on his photo. Leonard eventually decided that he would trust Natalie rather than Teddy. Seeing the note with the motel address, Leonard thought he should check in there, which he did. Leonard continues to tell someone on the phone about Sammy. Suddenly, he noticed a tattoo urging him never to answer calls. When Leonard asked who he was talking to, his interlocutor hung up. Natalie came with abrasions and told Leonard that Dodd did it. Natalie blamed Leonard, as she supposedly got involved in all this because of him. Natalie also claimed that a certain Teddy took everything, including substances and money. Leonard intended to deal with him. Natalie confessed to Leonard that out of fear, she told Teddy about him so he would soon make himself known. After this conversation, Leonard got back in his car, where Teddy was already waiting. Leonard asked the motel receptionist over the phone not to connect him with anyone. Natalie came to Leonard and stated that a guy named Dodd is following her. He wants to know where Jimmy disappeared to with the money. Natalie only knows that Jimmy went to meet someone named Teddy and never came back. Now Natalie wants Leonard to get rid of Dodd for her. But Leonard has no intention of doing that. The only person he's willing to do it for is his wife. Natalie began openly insulting Leonard and his wife. She doesn't even hide the fact that she's using him because she knows he'll forget everything soon anyway. When Natalie left, Leonard began frantically looking for a pen and paper to write down everything that had happened. Suddenly, Natalie came back into the house and started behaving as if they hadn't seen each other today. The motel receptionist told Leonard that the police had been asking about him. However, Leonard has no intention of talking to anyone on the phone because it will disorient him even more. When Natalie asked why the police weren't looking for JG, Leonard replied that no one believes in his existence. That night, he woke up in the middle of the night to noise. Someone broke into their house and attacked his wife. Taking his gun, Leonard fired, but someone else approached him from behind and knocked out. Leonard lost consciousness. He is sure there were two guys, but the police have a different opinion. Natalie offered Leonard to stay with her for a while. Before she left for work, Leonard took a photo of her so as not to forget. When Natalie returned, she said that those to whom Jimmy owed money had already appeared. Leonard continues to ignore calls from an unknown caller. At some point, someone left an envelope under his motel door with a note saying "Take my call." Inside the envelope was a photo of Leonard himself, looking very happy. Leonard met Natalie in a cafe where she works as a waitress. She is aware of his condition, as a police officer informed her about it. Leonard finally answered the phone. He has no idea who he's talking to and what the police want from him. Leonard finds a note from someone named Natalie in his pocket. However, he cannot know that the note was intended not for him but for Jimmy. But why? When Leonard came into the bar, he said he wanted to see Natalie. He didn't immediately realize that Natalie was in front of him. She asked where her boyfriend Jimmy was. Leonard doesn't understand who she's talking about. He explained to Natalie that he is sick, although she already knows that. Leonard told the officer on the phone about his condition and about Sammy. Sometimes Leonard feels that it is a kind of retribution for refusing to acknowledge Sammy's illness as a physical pathology. Some time before these events, Sammy's wife arranged his final test. Being a diabetic, she asked him to give her an insulin injection as usual. A few minutes later, when Sammy forgot about it, his wife asked him to give her the injection again. She believed that the husband loved her and that in this way she could awaken his memory. The woman asked Sammy to give the injection for the third time. Soon she felt unwell and fell into a coma, after which she passed away. Sammy ended up in a psychiatric clinic and doesn't know that his wife is no longer alive. Leonard realized too late that he had made a total mistake. Leonard came to a tattoo parlor to get a tattoo with JG's license plate number. Somehow Teddy found out that Leonard was here. Teddy told Leonard that it is no longer safe for him to stay in town because a detective is hunting him. Supposedly, this detective was calling him at the motel and slipping photos under the door. Allegedly through his connections, Teddy was able to find out that the detective is hunting Jimmy, a dealer. And Jimmy is somehow connected to Leonard, but how exactly is unclear. Teddy told Leonard to change and leave the town urgently. However, when Leonard saw a photo with the inscription that Teddy was lying, he escaped through the window. After that, following one of his clues, he was going to meet someone named Natalie from the bar. Seeing the car, Natalie somehow mistook him for Jimmy. Leonard arranged to meet with the police officer near the motel. Upon seeing Teddy, Leonard asked him if he was Officer John Gamble. The officer confirmed it and asked Leonard to call him Teddy for the sake of secrecy. He gave Leonard the address, as agreed. Leonard arrived at an abandoned building. After a few minutes, as the officer said, Jimmy Grants arrived, who was sure that Teddy was waiting for him here. Leonard attacked Jimmy, took his clothes, after which exacted revenge. Doing this, Leonard was sure that Jimmy was the same JG who took his wife's life. At least that's what the officer claimed. Leonard took a Polaroid picture of Jimmy and hastily changed into his clothes. Two chronological lines intertwined. At some point Leonard heard Jimmy, who was still breathing, say Sammy's name. Seeing Teddy approaching the building, Leonard looked at the photos and realized that he needed Teddy, not Jimmy. He called the officer for help, saying that there was an injured guy in the building. Teddy pretended to see Leonard for the first time. The officer didn't know it was a trick. Thus, Leonard lured Teddy into the building and demanded an explanation. It turns out Teddy, or John Gamble, is a detective who was investigating the attack on Leonard and his wife. He was the only one who believed Leonard's story that there were two criminals. However, the second guy had long been caught and avenged, but Leonard didn't remember that. Teddy decided to exploit Leonard's illness for his own purposes and made him believe that Jimmy Grants is the one he is after. In this way, Teddy, involved in illegal activities, wanted to get rid of Jimmy, who was in his way. But that's not all. According to Teddy, Sammy never had a wife. In reality, Leonard had amnesia even before the head injury. It was his wife who had diabetes. Allegedly, she survived the attack but later passed away due to several insulin injections at the fault of her husband. Leonard doesn't know what to believe. Was his wife really diabetic? Did he already seek revenge on the second guy? If so, Leonard is fudging the facts himself to give meaning to his life. And the meaning of his life is revenge. Throughout this time, he hunted for JG for Teddy, and there were many guys with those initials. Officer John Gamble's initials also fit, but it's just a coincidence. Leonard wrote on the back of Teddy's photo not to trust him. He also burned Jimmy's photo to forget it forever. Now his next target will be Teddy, the guy with the matching initials. Despite Teddy's warnings, Leonard towed Jimmy's car and drove off. Now it's dangerous for him to be in town because many might mistake him for Jimmy, the dealer. Leonard believes in the world his mind creates and that his actions have meaning. In the final scene, we see Leonard stopping near the tattoo parlor and asking himself, "What was that?" Don't forget to subscribe to our channel not to miss more exciting new products. Also, the authors will be pleased if you leave your opinion in the comments.